So, hey everybody, my name is Austin Counts and welcome to Going Solar with the Solarize Southwest Virginia program. Once again, my name is Austin Counts. I'm a field coordinator with Appalachian Voices, and I work with the Solar Workgroup of Southwest Virginia on a variety of projects like this, such as how to help people go solar on their homes or through residential solar, community solar, commercial solar, and a number of other initiatives that we have in Southwest Virginia, just trying to bring clean, renewable solar energy to the region. I'm also joined here today with Ben Perry, the Territory Manager with Solar Energy Solutions, and Julie Jones, the Marketing and Communication Coordinator with Solar Energy Solutions. And they're going to be leading us through a lot of the substance for today's presentation. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the Solarize program and why you're here today. So the Solarize Southwest Virginia program is made up primarily of two partners, one being the Solar Workgroup of Southwest Virginia. And what the Solar Workgroup of Southwest Virginia does is it manages and conducts the outreach for the Solarize Southwest Virginia program to help homeowners like you, other people, or maybe even small business owners who are interested in figuring out how they can go solar in an economic and a community-driven way. And so the Solar Workgroup selects a solar installer. Sorry for the background noise. We select the installer and conduct education outreach programs like this for current and potential participants, such as hopefully yourselves by the end of today. Through this program, we've partnered with Solar Energy Solutions, and they will be our solar installer for the Solarize Southwest Virginia program. This means that SES will conduct solar feasibility assessments with each of the participants that decides to look into solar through the program. And should you decide to ultimately go solar, they'll be the ones to provide the installation, help secure approvals, financing, and financial incentives for your solar panels. And it's worth mentioning that through Solar Energy Solutions, all of these prices that you're going to hear today are a little bit special. Because we're going solar through this program, we're able to provide a little bit of a discount to most of our participants. But what is the Solarize program in itself? So Solarize itself is a way for community members to learn about solar energy and reduce the cost of residential solar installations by going solar together. By going solar together, we're essentially lowering the prices that are available through the selected installer, such as Solar Energy Solutions, by allowing them to get bulk purchase discounts on larger solar equipment, but also by reducing the costs on travel, time, education, and outreach into communities. We had somebody just join. If you could, please mute yourself with a little bit of background noise. Thank you. So as I was mentioning, by going solar through this Solarize program, we're essentially cutting the cost for our participants. In addition to that, each participant through the program will receive a free solar feasibility assessment for your home with no obligation to go solar. That means that you'll be working with Ben Perry from Solar Energy Solutions, essentially to get an assessment on how many panels your home can use, whether that be on the roof or through a ground mount, how much you can save in the long run, and what percentage of your yearly energy consumption can you actually create yourself through solar panels. And so here's a little bit of the timeline for our Solarize Southwest Virginia program. As you can see, we already had our first Solar 101 solar information session in April. And so if you missed that, don't worry, we have a recording available that we can send to you in a later follow-up email. And that's soon going to be featured on our website. You also see that you are joining our second information session today on May 12th, Going Solar, and where we're going to walk you a little bit through what the process of going solar is actually like, especially through this program. On May 27th, we're going to have our last virtual information session on the benefits of residential solar. And hopefully in July, we'll have a couple of in-person solar events where we can all come together, maybe visit a solar-powered resident in Southwest Virginia and figure out if solar energy is right for you. Through this program, the deadline for new participants to sign up is July 1st. So if you know of anybody who would be interested, make sure you reach out to them soon and let them know that there is a limited time for you to sign up. And this is because we hope in August, September, and October that we can have all the site visits completed with each of the participants, that we can get all the proposals to the participants and drafted, and that we can get all the signed contracts by around the end of September to ensure that all the participants can go solar in 2021. And then finally, how do you join? So we're currently looking for participants in Wise, Lee, Dickenson, and Buchanan counties in the city of Norton. If you're outside of those counties, we are working to figure out how we can include additional homeowners. So feel free to sign up either way, but just know right now in our current timeline, these are the participants that we're mostly looking at. You can sign up at swvasolar.org/solarize SWVA. And once you go there, you will see this quick form that just asks you to give your email address, a name, and your physical address. No PO boxes. The physical address is really what allows us to start this process pretty quickly and to get a startup assessment of your home just through Google Maps. And once again, you can expect more information events coming in late May, and then hopefully a few in person in June. So keep up to date. But with that being said, I want to hand it over to Julie Jones with Solar Energy Solutions to start you all down the line of going solar. Julie?
All right, thank you very much. Yes, like Austin said, I'm Julie Jones. I work in marketing and communications for Solar Energy Solutions. And then having these talks are really a favorite part of my job because I just love helping people understand all of the different aspects about solar so that you can kind of evaluate everything about your house and about, you know, what things might cost and what the payback might be, just so you can make a very informed purchase. So with that, let's jump to our first slide. Okay, so really the first step to any purchase, really anything, is the education part. And so most of what we'll go over here in this first step is all the Solar 101. And again, this will be recorded and sent to you so you can watch it again if you miss any parts, but I'm going to try to just go through it all step by step. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so how does solar work? These are kind of the 101s, all the parts. So as you can see on this building, you know, with number one, you've got the solar panels. So solar panels create electricity by making direct current. So the solar panels produce direct current, then goes down into a piece of equipment called the inverter. That inverter takes that direct current and changes it into the alternating current that your house uses. So that alternating current goes into your main electric panel. And then from there, it goes out into your house to whatever power needs your house has at the time. Now, with a net metered system, any power that's not being used will be sent back out into the grid through what's called a bidirectional meter. So what that is it's a meter that can basically run forward and run backwards. So when power is coming into your house, your bill is going up. When power is going out of your house, your bill is going down, and you pay the net at the end of the month. Basically, in this scenario, the grid acts like a battery for you. So most people's homes will be making a lot of power during the day, you know, probably more than you use during the day. But then at night, you need some of that power back. So net metering is a great way to do that. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so here's another look at the way net metering works. So you've got the solar panels that are sending the power into an inverter or a microinverter. We use inverters and optimizers. Then it either goes into the house or it goes out into the grid. And like I said, with grid tied systems, you get to push power out and pull power back. And so you don't require a battery to kind of use that power at night. You're just sending it out and then borrowing it back. You're taking it back, really. one of the big sort of bummers of this kind of system is, however, that if the grid goes down, your system is always looking for the grid. If the grid goes down, it's going to turn off your solar system. And the reason it does this is so that in case the grid were to go down on, a bright sunny July day when you are creating tons and tons of power, you don't accidentally push power into lines where people are working to try to restore power. So that's kind of why that happens. And that's why some people do get a battery, or a backup system. All right, next slide, please. So battery powered. So if you don't want to lose power when the grid goes down, if you're in an area where power outages happen a lot and they can happen for many days, then you might choose a solar powered battery. And so we are a Tesla certified installer. And so this is the Tesla Powerwall. What this does is it stores any extra power that you have, during the day, and then you can use that power at night. The nice thing with the Tesla battery is you can also tell it how much you want to save in case of an outage. So say you want to use your power at night, but you always want to keep 20% of your battery in case the grid goes down all of a sudden, in case there's a thunderstorm and things go down. You can do that. You can just toggle it back and forth. And the Tesla Powerwall also connects with the weather service. So if it sees like tornadoes and things like that coming, it will change to keep itself 100%, at full capacity until that threat has passed. So those are some of the pros of the Tesla Powerwall. The cons are that it is an expense. So it is an expensive piece, to add to, a solar system. If you're in a place where you're not losing power a lot, you may not want, to use this unless you really want to use more of your solar power. So, the Tesla Powerwall does come with a 10-year warranty, but your solar panels are guaranteed for 25 years. So those are just some things to think about there. All right, next slide, please. Okay, step number 2. So now we've gone through a lot of the education part kind of quickly. Definitely watch this again. But the step 2 is to take a look at your roof. And so what Ben's going to be doing is first he's going to take a look at your roof through satellite. So let's go to the next slide here and I'll show you the things. So he's going to look for shading first. He's going to see what kind of shading is around, what kind of trees are around your house. And one way that he can tell, satellites aren't perfect, but he can tell how close a tree is and try to kind of, guesstimate, how much it's going to affect the roof. When he does a full site visit, he will take shade readings from the roof. So we'll know exactly what every tree around your roof is going to do, as far as shading is concerned. But these are some things to look for. If you've got a tree that's some distance from the roof and not very high, likelihood in this second picture is it's not going to throw much shade on your roof. If, however, you've got more of a 50-foot, 100-foot tree very close to your house, that's going to cause some shading issues. And so shade readings are really going to be important to evaluate what your system's going to do. All right, next slide, please. All right, roof orientation. So the best orientation is south. But that being said, east and west are good orientations as well. South is, always going to have sun on it. And east and west is going to fade, not going to get a lot of that very early morning sun or not going to get a lot of that late evening sun. But still, it's going to put out, it might be maybe 10 or 15% less than a straight southern roof, but still will put out a lot of power. All right, and then there are just some examples of, obviously every house isn't exactly north, south, or east, west. So in the bottom here, you can see how those two with the green arrows, those are great for solar. The red arrows, we wouldn't put solar on. So that's just one way to take a look if you want to jump into Google Earth and look at your own roof. All right, next slide, please. Okay, and then roof configuration. So this is another thing that Ben will be looking at. So the roof at the top is probably your ideal roof. You can see that that southern roof, no shading, and it doesn't have any obstructions on it at all. There are some vents, but they're on the northern side. Now, some slight obstructions on this second roof are some dormers that come out slightly. You know, obstructions can be worked around. You know, some PVC vents can be moved. So those are pretty easy. On this bottom roof, you've got a lot of really big obstructions. There just isn't a lot of space on those two roof surfaces with the very large dormers to put solar panels. So that's another thing that Ben's going to look at, you know, and you can look at on your own roof. Okay. Don't worry. If your roof isn't great, there is another option. So a ground mount is a great option. You know, at the smaller sizes, it can be a little more expensive because you're building a structure. But as you get to the mid, you know, and larger size systems, it can be, you know, pretty close to the same because you're saving a lot of labor by putting all those panels on from the ground. So it actually can be a very good option in a lot of situations. So if your roof is, you know, completely covered with trees, has lots of pipe vents coming out on the southern side and lots of dormers, think about your yard. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the next thing that Ben's going to ask for are your utility bills. So one of the things that will help us size your system is to understand how your home uses power over the year, because we don't want to size, you don't want to buy solar you're not going to use, right? You don't want to overpay for it. So looking at your utility usage is a really good way to help us, you know, come in on what size it is. There's basically three things that will help size your system. You know, how much space do you have? How much energy do you use? And then budget. And it's always going to be the smallest of those three that will determine the size of your system. So let's see. Oh, also, if you are planning any large electric usage items in the future, that's something you want to let Ben know. If you're planning on getting an electric vehicle, if you're planning on a hot tub or a pool, these are large energy items that, you know, we can look up and try to plan for when we look at sizing. All right. The next thing that will happen, so Ben will take all of that information. He'll have looked at your roof. He'll have talked to you about what your goals are. He'll looked at your energy bills, and now he's going to put together a remote quote. So this is his best estimate of what will fit on your roof based on what he's seen through the satellite, on what your home needs based on, you know, what your energy bills say. And it's going to look pretty much like a proposal. It's kind of like the rough draft almost. So it's going to cover all the things that are covered in our full turnkey installation. So all the design, engineering, permitting, inspections, and project management are all included. It's going to give you panel information. So you know what kind of panel you're getting, how many panels you're getting, tell you about your inverter, all the wiring and installations. It'll give you a breakdown of your warranty information. It will give you your gross price and then tell you what your net price will be after the 26% tax credit that you will get back on the next year's taxes. And we also put a payment amount, an estimated payment amount based on the loan options that we have at the time. Next slide, please. Okay. So here we are at the pricing. So here's two different systems. So, and we're just kind of giving you a range. So the first system on the left, that's your roof mounted system. And we're just giving you a range between 5 kW and 10 kW. And to help you understand kind of what that means, when you look at your bill, you'll be able to see how many kilowatt hours you use in a year. And if you go down 2 more lines, you'll see the output for each of those systems. So you'll know that you're either closer to the small side or the larger side of the system based on what your utility bill is showing you. But so this, 5 or 10 kW system, and it gives you the price range there and then what the output would be. And then that's the installment loan price that we have, but we'll talk about different options for financing. And then what you'll see, what's interesting is on the ground mount price, so we've got the same sizes here from the 5 to 10 kW. You'll see that at the smaller end, at the 5 kW, it's about $1,000 more to go with a ground mount. But as you get toward the larger, then you start to see those savings in labor. And so it's really just $100 more. So if your roof isn't ideal, this is definitely a good option. Also, when you're talking about a ground mount, you can position a ground mount much more ideally. We can put it where there is no shade. We can put it at a perfect, pitch, so you'll get a little more output, on the roof will match your roof pitch, but it's definitely, a good way to go if you don't have the space. So there are definitely 2 good options. Again, the payment at the bottom is based on the loan options that we have at this moment. All right, next slide, please. Oh, let me get a little sip of water. Okay, so there are a number of items that can add cost to your system. Things like very steep roofs. Now, if there's a roof that's over like a 712 pitch, it just takes a lot more time and care to put panels on a roof that steep, because you don't want to walk on a roof that steep because you'll grind off those little asphalt, granules. And so it just takes more time. So it'll add some cost. If we're putting panels on more surfaces, so if there's 2 or 3 different surfaces to a roof, that's going to add a little more cost because we've got some conduit runs. We can relocate PVC vent pipes. There's just a little cost for that. If there's no Wi-Fi in the house, we can add a cell card to the inverter. And the reason we would want to do that is because your inverter is going to come with monitoring, which means you'll be able to just get online and see what your panels are doing at any given time. You'll be able to see what they did the last week, the last month, the last year, back to the very beginning. And it's really great. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to look at. But anyway, so if there's no Wi-Fi in the house, the way for the inverter to communicate that would be through a cell card. And so that is just a little extra cost. Also, any internal Cat 5 runs to the inverter, it's just more labor, more hours, so it adds some cost. But that's all stuff that Ben would have spelled out for you in, your firm proposal. Let's see, for ground mount systems, usually those are, in dirt, and not in pavement. But if we do need to drill through concrete, or if there's a lot of rock underground, so we need to drill, that's going to just add a little extra cost. And if there's a lot of pitch difference, sort of east-west, that's going to add a little cost because there'll be extra materials and some things there. And then with our ground mounts, we include 50 feet of trenching. So if it's 50 feet from the house, there's no additional cost for trenching. But anything beyond that, or if it's going across, a paved driveway or something like that, it's just going to add a little bit of cost there. But just so you kind of know all the things that might add some cost. All right, next slide. Okay. So payment options. So cash is obviously one way to pay. And the way we structure our cash or our payments when it's cash is that we take a 20% down payment. And then at the end of the system installation, when it's turned on, then you're invoiced for that 80%. So you can see we've got the deposit here, 20%. Then we start doing permitting, connection logistics, the construction happens, Then we have inspections. Then when we're given the okay to energize the system, at that point, we would then invoice you and you would get that, you would owe that 80%. And after that, you're generating your own solar power. And of course, you want to take that final invoice, because along with Form 5695 on your next taxes, you're going to use that to get your tax credit for the next year. All right, next. So another option, which is similar to paying cash, is to take out a HELOC loan from your bank. Now, a HELOC is it's a home equity line of credit. Now, this is a nice way to borrow money because you can borrow from your own bank, and it's based on the amount of equity that you have in the home. And I think, interest rate is based on credit as well. But it varies from bank to bank what the needs are, but those are some of the basics. And with that, you take out the loan, the bank gives you the money, and then you would still pay in a cash structure. So you would give us the 20% deposit, and then you would give us the 80% at the end of the loan, or at the end of the construction. Sorry. And then the final option, oops, one more. There we go, is an installment loan. Now, we work with a company called Sunlight Financial, and Sunlight Financial has a loan product that is built specifically for solar. And what I mean by that is that it takes into account the fact that you won't get your tax credit for up to 17 or 18 months. So what they do is they create their payment based on the idea that you will, by month 17, apply that 26% tax credit. So the first payment that you pay, if you apply your tax credit, will be the same amount. So if that was $150 a month or $75 a month, it will stay the same throughout as long as you put that 26% in. Now, the nice thing about it is that it's flexible. If for some you get, I don't know, you win the lottery, and you've got an extra $5,000 and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to put that on the solar. Well, if you apply that with your 26% tax credit, well, then your payment will go down. It'll re-amortize. What if it gets really cold, the pipes burst, and you have all this additional cost right at the time when you get your tax credit back? Well, you can put a little less or none, and those payments will just re-amortize. So this right now, like the payments that I had in the earlier slides, they're based on a 20-year term at 0.99%. Now, at that same 0.99%, we also have a 10, a 12, and a 15-year term. And then there are other terms available. So there's a loan term and configuration that will work for just about anyone. And then again, you get your 26% federal tax credit with the next year's taxes. All right. Okay. So step 5, you make a decision. So if at this point you're ready to go for solar, that's great. If you're not, you can opt out. There's a lot to learn with solar, and then there's a lot to just kind of understand and get your arms around. And a lot of people, take time, to just understand everything. And if now isn't the time, now isn't the time. But if now is the right time for you to go solar, what we would do next is that Ben would set up a site visit. And that's where he would, he's already sent you a remote quote. So he's going to use that as a basis. He's going to come out to your home or your business, and he's going to gather a lot of on-site information. He's going to get actual roof measurements, so that he knows exactly how big the roof is. He's going to take shade readings so that we understand exactly how any foliage around your roof is going to affect the sun that hits your roof. He's going to look at your electric system, so that we know that we can, get into your panel, there's space in your panel. We know anything that we might need to do. He's going to look at all of that stuff. And then he's going to put together a firm proposal. It's going to look a lot like that remote quote, but it's going to have a little more information. It's going to be, a firm price, have some spec sheets on all of your equipment, and just all that kind of stuff together. And at that point, you'll also then receive a contract. So you can sign the contract. If you're paying cash or, doing HELOC and then paying cash, you would just put the 20% down at that point. If you're doing financing, you'll want to let Ben know, because he can kind of start, they can do what's called a soft credit pull, where it's not going to ding your credit, but it's just going to take a look, and they can start getting all of that financing together, and then what you would do is sign your contract and finalize any financing documents with Sunlight. And then next slide. All right, so now you've done that. Here's what happens at Solar Energy Solutions. So we've got the signed contract, and then the contract moves into what we call contract review. It's a quality control stage. So we have 2 people internally that will take a look at everything that Ben put together and just make sure that we have everything that we need to make your install a success. Once it's gone past contract review, the final design will happen. Engineering and final drawings, like one-line drawings that are needed for permitting, interconnection agreements, then all the sort of procurement that needs to be done, and any procurement that needs to be done, and preliminary scheduling will happen. And then installation and inspection and commissioning. And then next slide, then you're enjoying your solar. So generally, from the time you sign your contract, well, we go through all those steps that I just went through. It's probably about 8 to 12 weeks before you're generating your own power. That can fluctuate through the year, but from that point on, you'll be your house will be receiving solar power for the next 35 to 40 years. And the warranties that this program has all the fully extended manufacturer warranties, plus we have added a solar insure warranty on top of that. So everything is warranted out to 30 years. So your system is maintenance free and worry free for 30 years. All right. Back to Austin.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, and thanks for all the super useful information. It's always really nice to know the exact process before we really start looking into it super heavy. It's a lot of work y'all are doing. But I do want everybody to know, because solar energy is relatively new in Southwest Virginia, and I know we have at least a few people on today that's thinking, okay, we know this is available throughout the US, but is it actually happening in Southwest Virginia yet? And the quick answer is yes. Actually, in just the past 2 years, I've worked with a number of people in Dickenson County, Wise County, and even some in Tazewell County and Washington County that have been installing solar panels on their residential homes, like the one you see in the picture here. This is actually a pretty good sized ground-mounted system in Washington County. And if you're interested in any more of your solar neighbors in Wise County, or pretty soon, we'll be including a few in Dickenson County and Tazewell County as well, you can go to Solarize, swvasolar.org/solar ambassadors. And I'll actually show you what that looks like right here really quickly. And then I'll take you to our My Solar Neighbors page, where you can see a number of people, hopefully in your county, that have already went solar. And so last week, 2 weeks ago, we actually had Kathy Selvage from Wise County join and talk about her system. And you can see a little bit here about when she went solar, how much her bill payments have been since going solar, and a little bit of her experience installing and having the system on a roof, as well as several others in Wise County, in the town of Wise itself, in Big Stone Gap, in Washington County. And as I mentioned, here soon, I'm going to be adding a few from Clintwood, Virginia, in Dickenson County, and hopefully a few in Tazewell and Washington County as well. So don't worry, it is happening in Southwest Virginia, but it's just starting. So if you take a little bit of a drive, maybe you can see a few people going solar. but hopefully there's going to be more and more in the years to come. So after we go through all of this, now that we've figured out all of the steps of going solar through the Solarize program, what are your next steps as potential participants? Maybe you've already signed up for the program, or maybe you joined today to see if it's worth looking into. So if you haven't already, your first next step is to fill out the Solarize Southwest Virginia participation form. And this is the form I mentioned a little bit earlier that has your that will take your physical address, your phone number, and email addresses as soon as you can. Fill them out this weekend if you can. That will just allow us a little bit more time to get in contact with you, to get all this information, and to start some of the preliminary assessments of your roof. The next step would be, once you fill out that form, once you give us your information, Ben Perry, who's also with Solar Energy Solutions, will be reaching out to you in the next few weeks to really start this solar feasibility assessment. This process that Julie was mentioning, where we'll start looking at the directionality of your roof and essentially whether solar works better for your roof, for a ground mount, or maybe neither. Unfortunately, one of the realities is here in Southwest Virginia that some of us do live in areas that's not necessarily the most beneficial for solar energy. So it'll really be up to you in the end to decide if solar energy is right for you and right for your home. But we hope to give you all the information you need to make a well-informed decision on that. And then if you're really interested and you already have a sense that your home is great for solar and you want to make this process as quick as possible, step 3 could be to start collecting your previous year's electricity bills as soon as possible. Once these are provided to Solar Energy Solutions through Ben, these will really help determine the ideal number of solar panels and estimated energy savings. Because in Virginia, you don't want to produce any more electricity than you can use in a given year. So making sure we know exactly how much you're using on the average year will be really important for making sure you get a very economical solar array. So from going on from today, if you have any more information on this, feel free to email me. You should already have my email from signing up here today, but just in case you don't, it's really simple, just austin@appvoices.org, or you can give me a phone call at the number shown on the screen. Everything forwards directly to my cell phone, so whether I'm in the office or not, I should be available to take your call, or at least give you a call back as soon as possible. And with that being said, I hope you all have a ton of questions, because we've allowed for a little bit of time for it here today. And generally, I like to leave about 20 minutes for that. So thank you all for joining. We are going to keep recording. And here are a few solar installations in Southwest Virginia, just to give you a little bit of inspiration for any questions you may have. And if you have questions, feel free to come off of mute and just ask them away. Or if you feel more comfortable using the chat, feel free to go into your chat option, it should be in the middle of your screen, and then type in whatever questions you have. And so, Ben, I see one question in the chat already that asks, is SES NABCEP certified, and do you use subcontractors?
Quick answer to that is yes and no. So yeah, we have multiple people on staff NABCEP certified, and no, we do not use subcontractors unless it's something that's well out of the line of normal solar installs. If we need somebody, if we need somebody to do something that's outside of the normal solar installation range, yeah, we will. But yeah, for vast majority of installs, no, we do it all ourselves.
I will add to that really quickly. One of the things that we hope to be able to do through the program, it's not concrete yet, but one of the things we hope to do is to be able to use potentially some students from nearby colleges that are looking into solar installations, or maybe some local workforces, in getting them involved in these installations as well. That way, not only are we getting installations kind kind of rolling in Southwest Virginia, we're also helping to train and include local workforces or local students or people that are just looking to go into the solar energy, in this process as well. And so we don't have a clear outline for that yet, but Ben, Julie, and I will be continuing to talk about that and figuring out how we can make sure that this work benefits local people as well, beyond just the ability to save money on electricity bills through your home.
Yeah.
Well said.
So another question comes in, should we have a new roof put on before doing solar panels? If not, and we need a roof, how difficult is it to replace solar panels once they're installed, I guess?
Mhm.
Yeah, what we typically recommend, particularly if you've got an asphalt shingle roof, if your roof is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years or older, yeah, we recommend that you replace it, or or put off the installation, or whatever it is you decide to do. But yeah, it's removing a solar system to have a roof replaced is a fairly significant cost. And basically in 2021 dollars, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, typically for most homes, somewhere between $1,500 and maybe $3,000 to do that. So it's a significant cost that you need to keep in mind as you kind of decide how and when to move forward with a project. So yeah, if you've got a roof that's got some age on it, it's asphalt shingle, yeah, we recommend going ahead and getting that replaced. If it's a metal roof and you're expecting a 40 to 50 year life out of it, 10-year-old roof is not that big a deal. So it really depends on your particular situation.
So there's another question here, and I'll go to one first and then I'll come back to the other. But the first question is, do you offer solid black panels without lines? Yes,
we do. As a matter of fact, the primary panel that we bid for this project is a black on black panel.
And so the second question in that was, if the Solarize Southwest Virginia program is coming to Carroll County. Unfortunately, Solarize Southwest Virginia is a part of the Solar Workgroup of Southwest Virginia, which focuses primarily on the 7 coalfield counties, meaning Tazewell, Buchanan, Wise, Lee, Russell, Scott, and Buchanan, and Dickenson. And so we don't really have a plan to expand to Carroll County at the moment. However, if you're still really interested, I would love to be able to talk with you. And you're not from one of those counties. I would love to be able to talk with you, maybe give you a couple of tips on who would work in Carroll County and who you can reach out to and how you can get the best price possible. And I don't know, maybe we can include SES in that conversation, or maybe that's a little bit out of their range as well. So Michael, I'd love to continue talking with you about that offline, if that's okay.
Let's see, Austin, someone has a question about solar panel effectiveness improving. And I could just jump in on that a little bit, and I'll let Ben, jump in if he wants to after that. So I've been in this industry for, I want to say 8 years. And when I first, I was a sales rep as opposed to a marketing and communications person like I am now. And when I was first talking with folks, the base panels that I was using were a 260 watt panel, and like the top end, the really like great ones that you were paying more money for, were like a 285, maybe a 295. But now we've got panels that we're using, between a 330 and, up to, we had a 410 for a little while. I think we now have a 400. But so, that kind of gives you, the progress is sort of incremental, but it just keeps going. So you're getting more and more power out of that same space, that same 60 cells, which is about 3.5 feet by 5 feet, used to be about 260 watts. Now you can get up to 410, out of that same 60 watt, 60 cell panel. So maybe that answers the question a little bit.
And I go back a little farther than that. I was the head of the organization that got the first net metering bill passed in Kentucky back in '03. So literally the very first solar net metered system in the state was right outside my window. And in those days, the big news was the first 200 watt panels coming out. So that was big hot news at the time.
So you just dated yourself compared to
I
me.
did, and
Right.
yeah, well, I'm on camera. Nothing I can really hide at this point. So. But just kind of,
yeah.
I was just say, just while we got a little bit of break, I just wanted to say that today's a very auspicious day for me, actually, personally, in terms of solar. I got solar installed on our garage roof today. This is actually my first system, even though I've been in the kind of solar world for a long period of time. I actually started. I ordered my first system 2 years ago through an event exactly like this one in Kentucky, and Solar Energy Solutions had the install assignment at that point. And I ordered a system 2 years ago, and just circumstances didn't allow me to install it at the time. So. And at that time, I was not working for Solar Energy Solutions, had no clue that I was going to be. But now that I am and have been for a while, I was able to order basically the same system again, and finally got it installed today. So.
All right.
Congratulations.
So yes, these programs do work, and they do create incentives and opportunities that that are difficult to come by. Just kind of going one-on-one, trying to buy a system. So.
Yeah.
So we have one question in the chat that just mentioned that some of the people may have one or more buildings that they're looking for solar on. Specifically in the chat, it's a person with 2 homes in Wise County. Would they be able to get an assessment on both? Personally, I don't see any problem with that, but I would like to hear what Ben thinks.
As long as the program, doesn't prohibit it, then yeah, we're happy to. If somebody's got a home and a business, or 2 homes, or whatever it may be, if they qualify for the program, then yeah, absolutely. Well, they'll get an assessment, and we can install it if it all works out.
Well, that's great. There's definitely nothing prohibiting them, so I think you're good to go on both homes. So the next question is, when will a solar/home assessment actually happen?
It kind of depends on where you are, and to the program's credit, we've participated in a number of these types of programs, but you all have more participants by a factor of 2, even possibly 3, than the average program we come across. So there's a lot of people to reach out to and a lot of people to work with. We're kind of starting in Wise County. We're starting with kind of the population centers and kind of working our way out. So if you're in Wise County, the chances are that you'll be contacted in just the next few weeks, and depending on how quickly we can get a remote quote out to you and get things decided and get a site survey scheduled, it could be as early as 3 to 4 weeks, could be more more in the range of 5 to 6 weeks. But if you're farther out in some of the other counties, Dickenson, Buchanan, Lee, then chances are it's going to be a little bit farther out. It's going to be several weeks before we can reach out to you initially, and a few more weeks after that before we can get site visits done. So really depends on where you are.
On that question, I will also add a little bit of praise to Ben and them. Actually, just this week, we've got our first several assessments sent in and out to participants. And so at least the preliminary assessments. And so we are rolling. We are already reaching out to people. And so the other big part of that is just, if you're already signed up through the form that I mentioned earlier, you're already into the program and we're already considering when we're going to reach out. If you're not yet, make sure to do so. The longer it takes for that to happen, the longer it'll take for us to be able to get to you.
And just because of the logistics, I'll be coming over probably once we kind of get rolling, a couple of days every week or 2, and staying overnight and doing, probably a couple of evaluations a day. So a lot of it's going to be a matter of kind of building up a certain number of site visits in a certain area, then we'll get those scheduled and come over, get those taken care of, and build up a few more. And so it'll kind of happen in kind of spurts like that, depending on how many site visits we can get within a certain kind of geographic area.
And so the next question that we have is, what maintenance can we expect from solar panels mounted on a roof?
I'm sorry, what was the?
What types of maintenance would
Oh.
they expect for solar panels mounted on a roof?
Typically none. There are some people that are very conscientious and will maybe hose their panels down, once every month or two, maybe during the summer, but really nothing is required. They are, once they're up there, unless something, something out of the ordinary happens, they're there, and the rain will keep them, washed off enough to take care of it. And just so kind of when we're putting together production numbers, production figures for solar panels, we build in a certain amount of what we call soiling. And soiling is basically just the normal dust and dirt that accumulates on a panel. We typically do it at about 5% through most of the year. And then in December, January, and February, we bump it up to 10% and 15%, and then back down to 10%. That allows for any snow or ice that tends to accumulate in the wintertime. So don't think when you're out there and you got a little bit of snow and ice and you're like, oh no, we're going to lose production. That's all really built into the production numbers, and you should still be able to reach your goals and projection, even with some snow and ice.
And just
I would say, like, I would never, people used to ask me a lot, do I need to wash them? And the only time I ever had someone who really did need to do that is there was a huge construction site that like started work down the road. And so they did go out and wash them down, but that's really only because it was kind of an out of the ordinary kind of situation where just a ton of, debris was getting kicked up all the time with the construction. But most of the time, like Ben said, it's going to rain often enough that it's going to wash them off pretty well.
Another really interesting fact that I learned a little while back is solar panels are one of the only ways of generating electricity with zero moving parts. And so there's not a lot of mechanisms to break. Sometimes an inverter will go down or there'll be a little bit of trouble there. But largely, these panels are very sturdy. They don't require any kind of mechanical maintenance. They're just there to produce energy for however long they can.
Right, and the optimizers, which are the part of the inverter that's connected to the panel, those have a 25-year warranty extended out to the 30 years with this program, just like the rest of it. So those would all be covered, and that's probably the one piece that you might see an issue with. But yeah, the panels themselves, I've never seen an issue,
All right. And before we start addressing our last question here, I just want to remind people that we've been really good with it so far. But if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're getting ready to answer the last one we have on the list at the moment. Or if you prefer to ask your question in person, feel free to come off of mute for a second and just speak up. It's okay. So just a room, all of us here trying to learn a little bit about what solar looks like. But our last question that we have listed here is, what do solar panels essentially do to your home's value? Would it decrease it? Would it increase it? What are you expecting to see after installing solar on a home?
That's, there's nothing guaranteed, but national studies involving tens of thousands of homes have showed that consistently, even with fairly small to moderate sized solar systems, the average is about 3 to 4% of the value of the home increase with a home with solar panels versus a home without. U.S. Department of Energy's average figures right in about the $15,000 range, and that's kind of just an average of all systems. Like I say, a lot of it has to do with if you're going to sell your home, how well you promote the solar, component of the home. But like I say, on average, many thousands of homes, 3 to 4% is about what you can expect on average, or $15,000 range anyway.
And I'll just say that Ben did a lot of research on this, and so there is a blog entry on our website where he's got links to the different articles that he looked at if you wanted to learn more about it. So that's a good resource, and he's the right man to answer it.
Right. And we got one more question here for now. Does the roof structure generally need to be reinforced to hold solar panels? Or is there any kind of preparation needed for them beforehand?
Only in very, very, very rare cases. A solar system, just to kind of put it in perspective, is typically going to add about 2.5 to 3 pounds per square foot to a roof surface. Any human being walking on a roof is going to put, 200-300 or more pounds per square foot. So if you can walk comfortably on a roof, typically it's going to be fine structurally. So yeah, it's like I say, extremely rare cases, typically in older buildings or something that's been compromised in some way, or just a really poor, faulty design of some sort. But very rare. I have not had one in my experience yet. So
I have to say, I had one, but it was 100-plus-year-old building, and there had been some damage in the attic structure that had compromised a few of the trusses. So that just needed to be fixed. But that's the only thing that I've had that just where there was damage. And generally, I think, any roof is built to hold 2 layers of lightweight roofing material, like 2 layers of asphalt shingles. And the solar panels are about a layer, like they equate to the same thing as 1 lightweight layer of roofing.
and basically any structure that's built after, I'm trying to think of the date, it's sometime really late 70s or early 80s, maybe 82. But after a certain point, roof structures by code have to be designed to accommodate at least 20% additional weight. So that more than covers solar systems for sure.
Great.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think that's our last question, and it's right at the end of the hour. So I'd be happy to let you all go on your day, maybe eat a late dinner or just start getting ready for bed like myself. I like to go to bed right around the 9:30 range. So this gives me just enough time. But thank you all, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
If you haven't already, I have included a link to the sign up form in the chat. And if you haven't done that yet, feel free to click and go ahead and get signed up right now if you can. If not, I'm going to be sending the presentation out as well as a little bit of this information out through an email by tomorrow or Friday. So you can expect to hear from me soon.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.